Is Oriel the college of William Prynne, the lawyer and polemicist who lost both his ears for his Puritan beliefs? Or of William Allen, the recusant Catholic whose disloyalty to the English crown led him to a life of exile and plotting? Is it the college of George Brummel, the dandy and bon viveur who died in France impoverished and insane from syphilis? Or of Johann Ludwig Graf Schwerin von Krosigk, the German Minister of Finance from 1932 to 1945? During its long history, Oriel has been a haven for the principled and for the unscrupulous, for the loyal and the treacherous, for the conscientious and the wastrel. Of which other institution of ancient date is this not true? When we look to our alumni, what are we hoping to find? An example to imitate? A salutary lesson to avoid? Is it realistic to hope for either? What, after all, should we imagine a future generation to make of our own lives? Do we bequeath them the emetic of our own moral turpitude? Do we not, like Pascal, prefer an intelligent hell to a stupid paradise? Reputation and posterity, those troublesome puppet masters of our destiny, pull the strings of posthumous fortune in ways wholly beyond our control. No less an individual than the college's founder, King Edward II, the only English monarch to escape his own death for a hermit's life in Italy, has suffered much from the capricious machinations of these implacable agents. Yet a close look at his life suggests that there is much to admire: an enthusiasm for sports and feasting, an appreciation of the arts, music, drama, dance, especially music, practical skills such as hedging, digging, thatching, wall building, shoeing horses, a love of animals, ease with ordinary people, founding colleges, little skill or inclination for military campaigns. Which other Prince of Wales has retained someone at his private house to carry out repairs to the organ? We must regret that Edward's reign terminated so soon after the founding of Oriel and before he could personally attend to its musical life. 563 years after Edward founded Oriel, Edmund Fellows arrived as an undergraduate. His time at the college was not academically auspicious. As he himself later related of his finals, "I was placed in the 4th class. I think I was perhaps lucky to get away with this, for I really did little reading." Nonetheless, he subsequently established himself as a major scholar with an important and lasting cultural legacy. His life was uneventful. Born in Paddington in 1870 to a musical family, Edmund Horace Fellows showed musical inclinations at an early age, starting the piano at 5 and the violin at 6, receiving in his 8th year a rare offer of lessons from the great virtuoso Joseph Joachim in Berlin. The offer was not taken up, and instead he pursued a conventional middle-class education at Winchester College, followed by a place to read theology at Oriel in 1889. After graduation in 1893, he entered the church, taking ordination as a priest in 1895, becoming curate in Wandsworth, precentor at Bristol Cathedral, and from 1900 until his death in 1951, a minor canon at St George's Chapel, Windsor. During his time at Windsor, he researched and edited the long-lost music of the Tudor and Stuart composers, work which received international acclaim and earned him honorary doctorates from the universities of Dublin, Oxford and Cambridge, an honorary fellowship here at Oriel, and the Companion of Honour. Concise as this account is, it is sufficient to point up a contrast that I think is important in understanding Fellows and his achievement, between his musicality and his social conventionality. In his memoir, he gives no indication of having resented the decision taken by his family not to follow up lessons with Joachim, and thus a career as a virtuoso violinist. What does Fellows offer us as an example? In a sermon, one may hope for a special exemplar of spiritual strength and courage. Fellows was a churchman throughout his adult life, but faith and spirituality are not mentioned in his memoir. We need not infer any lack of commitment on his part to either. He lived in a time when English society was prominently Christian, and his commitment as a canon of the church to faith and the spiritual life would not have been in question. He may have felt in his memoir no inclination to try to make a virtue of what would reasonably have been expected of him in necessity. We may conclude, though, that the limits of his devotion did not overstep the trammels of polite society. But this is not to underestimate for him the importance of religious faith in the life of the Church, a question to which I shall return. In an examination of his work, we discover healthy virtues. Industry. He completed a 36-volume on the sources of the English madrigal within 13 years. Conscientiousness. A colleague recalled that he never mislaid a scruple in attempting to solve an intractable editorial problem, but his face, reddened with an interior conflict between amiability and integrity, would work with honest woe until the right answer had been found. Passionate advocacy. Fellows made the case for the music he uncovered, making an impact beyond the library shelves. The music became living repertoire and remains so. Such virtues are very much at home in an academic institution, and Fellows became, after he left Oriel, a paradigm of the scholar. But here seems to be a paradox for the present endeavour of reflecting on Fellows in Oriel. In his memoir, Fellows stated that during his undergraduate years, Oriel was in no sense a musical college. He pursued his musical activities at Oxford mostly outside of the college's walls. During his time at Oriel, Fellows was not a scholar of achievement. Within the college, he was adept at lawn tennis, rowing, and genealogy. Do we have to be careful how closely we claim Fellows as our own? To answer this question, we need to approach an assessment of him from two directions. What was the meaning of his contribution to culture? And what role did Oriel play in the life of a man such as he was? It may be tempting to see in Fellows' work a contribution towards the historical conservation movement that is a prominent part of contemporary culture. I do not think this is how his work is best viewed. Thanks to Fellows' work, Tudor and Stuart musical repertoires are staple parts of worship in cathedrals and musically ambitious churches and chapels today. In Fellows' own time, this music was neither known nor, for the most part, understood. Although old, this music was experienced as new. Historically, the high point in the rediscovery of old music coincided with a high point in the invention of new musical styles. Fellows was part of a pioneer world of musical experience. His research into old music brought to light long-lost work that could be experienced in the same way as a newly created composition. An interest in early music at that time was not then the retreat from modernism that it may subsequently have become, but part of the modernist search for new styles and new means of expression. Fellows' editions of early music celebrated ways in which this music was strange to contemporary ears. Independence of mind is the key. If Fellows had been set on a more conventional musical career, he would have found himself at a more musical college. He might then not have made the significant contribution to culture that he did, for his contribution was a unique and individual one, and derived from his independence of outlook and opinion that put him ahead of his milieu. Oriel was the place that enabled him to be this person, to be a conventional member of Victorian middle-class society, to pursue his musical interests out and about, to be a keen sportsman, to be a mediocre student of theology. I'm not suggesting that Fellows was a sort of aesthetic fifth columnist in the English establishment, but I'm not far from suggesting this. I do not think he consciously set out to change the culture in a radical way. He thought he was working within it to improve and develop it. But there was a naivety in his makeup. Perhaps he was unaware of the contrast he lived. Yet, in being an artist of excellence in the staid society he inhabited, he could but be working to change it. In celebrating great alumni, such as Fellows, we are not engaging in a self-satisfied admiration of our own reflection. We are seeing what we could be. He is not a projection of the college, but a beacon lighting its way. Oriel was not a musical college in his day, but it is now. Oriel benefits from the historical repertory of music that he opens up. Oriel identifies with the quest for high standards that he championed. Fellows' bequest to the college is his achievement. To return to the question I raised at the outset, when we look at our alumni, what are we hoping to find? Not, I suggest, an example to follow or to shun, but an inspiration of the better world that we wish to create.